says that we're live, so we're going to get started. Welcome to Running on Tangents, the Federation X podcast, and I am here this time with a heavily requested guest. I have with me the legend himself, the boner force, the Kansas Kid. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I am the Kansas Kid.
Yeah, there you go. And before I dive in, and we're going to talk a lot of, I'm going to ask some questions of the kid, and we've got a couple of topics that he was certainly interested in, and so we're going to dig into those documents. Before I do that, I want to take a minute, and maybe you can even share some of the things that you are really following along with right now. But there's, you know, even over the holidays, and clearly when we got to holiday week, there was a slowdown, but there's been a lot of kind of new angles and new things going on as more and more people have jumped in. So I want to give a couple of shouts out on a few things. One, you know, just the whole, how does a company rebuild after it's been gone for years, and you know, what that story is of how they're trying to take a fresh angle or tell that story. The Mad Bomber kind of coming forward and saying, hey, I'm playing a rich character. I've got my mansion outside of Toronto. It's huge. Let's do an Ultimate Wrestler style thing. Let's bring guys in. Let's put them in teams. Like, I think that started to get some interesting role play going. We got two teams that were competing going into the holidays. We gave you guys some role play stories to jump on, and some people did, and they lead to matches, which are just getting started, I think, you know, yesterday and today. Obviously, we get this little bit of a slight slowdown, but I do think, you know, since our last podcast, since Gino was here with us, it's time to point out, like, you know, Holland showed up. Holland wasn't with us prior to that. And then we saw Pretty Boy, Devin Deshawn join us. You know, Jason Miller has made a couple of a post appearance, I think largely for the point of interacting with members of the Boner Force, which is entertaining. He had come back previously playing an interesting manager style character who has a number of charges that you can pick up and role play from him. And I think maybe my top how do we rebuild FedEx angle is the Society of Serious Wrestlers, which has entertained. It's what I guess morphed out of your original angle, which is Brain Damage Billy versus the Kansas Kid, which I was a huge fan of. Once I realized, well, at first I was like, are you just going to give me this? And then when I saw what it turned into, I really enjoyed it. How did that come about?
You know, I don't know. Just trying to differentiate the two between Boner Kid and just regular Kansas Kid, I guess. Trying to get back to being a wrestler again, to kind of help with the rebuild.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that's so interesting, because you're certainly, you know, like Benny, one of the guys who has gravitated to the ability to get comedic and do completely non-wrestler stuff, and yet find a way to really insert it into the wrestling stories, which I find amazing, because it's not easy for me. Sometimes it's not even easy for me to follow how we got to where we land. But I have a lot of characters that end up getting to play the straight guy in those scenarios. And that's equally entertaining for me, is to be the guy who is just like, I punch people in the face. I don't understand what's going on around me. But I'll bet you I can punch that in the face as well. So is there, and I'm going to jump around a bit because of where we landed, but is there a character that you really find plays straight against that zaniness that you particularly like working off of?
Well, recently I think Holland's been doing a good job of it. He's kind of been the straight man, and it's perfect. He admitted he's not much for the comedic style, so I thought that might be a fun pairing. I think it's been fun so far. Hopefully he's having fun.
Yeah, I think he is. And you know, we've had a chance to bounce a couple of things off on the Discord channel. He certainly seems pretty engaged in it. So that's excellent. Let's circle back around. I'll just let everybody know we have two topics that we're going to tackle as kind of our main topics after we go through a little bit of a question and answer. One of them is some of your thoughts on just the growth of the talent pool. How do we expand out of the core people that we continue to have? I know you had some ideas around that. And the other topic, which I'm sure will make its appearance known multiple times tonight, we need to talk about your white heat feud with Gino, because for people who don't know, this is for real. If they were within 10 feet of each other, there would be bloodletting right now. It's just ruthless. So we're going to get to both of those. And before we do, I'm going to ask, and I think I know the answer, but it's possible, like your career goes back far enough, it's possible the character we're seeing isn't the answer. So is the Kansas Kid who you're most known for playing?
I'd say probably at this point, yeah. I played with Gentleman a long time ago, Cyber Slam and Erasmo. Some of the guys know him, remember him. But I think most people would probably recognize the Kansas Kid.
Yeah, yeah. How did the Kansas Kid first come to Federation X? What was the incident that led you to land in Federation X?
Well, you guys had come over and invaded show. And I don't remember if I came over before Max Blew Up Wrestler or not, but I know I came over after.
Yeah,
I
sure.
don't remember if I came over before, but that was kind of it. I mean, you guys were all over here, kind of the last place to go, you know?
Yeah. When we came to show, did you have much of a knowledge of who we were? I don't mean the characters, but I just mean Federation X, like that body. Did you really know much about it, or were you isolated from that?
I was fairly isolated from that. I'd heard about it before, I'm sure, but I had never played there. Didn't know many of you guys that did play there.
Right.
Still knew some of the people playing on Wrestle, so that's kind of where I always ended up when I would come back.
Yeah. Well, I remember, I think around the time you came, I mean, I had a couple of different runs with different characters where I would backseat Alan and run Austin James or other people. And just the interesting dynamic. I remember thinking what a big pickup it was when you came. The level of activity certainly didn't hurt. The fact that you seem to be able to flex and roll, is that a strength you see in comedic characters, that they can really handle any situation? Whereas some characters, and I'll, throw Ed into it. Like Ed's certainly guilty. Like, I don't know that he's just carte blanche, he fits in every situation, but I certainly felt that from the Kansas Kid early on. Is that one of the things that you like about taking that approach?
Yeah, I think it does make it a lot easier. With the comedic character, you can kind of roll with it if you have to. You can make something up just to make it work.
Right.
And I've run into that with serious characters too. It's harder for me because I always want to take that comedic shortcut or some way out there with the serious character.
Yeah.
It's tough for me to do the serious characters.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me. Some of you guys are just so, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. In fact, our top 5 will be we'll ask you for your top 5 comedic performers and how you would build a comedy fed. It's amazing to me what some of you guys can do in terms of your timing and the humor, and just how creative you guys can be. I am often overwhelmed in those scenarios, and I'll just latch onto like one good piece in an angle and run the straight character against that really stable piece that I know you can play off of. Did you find that there were players who just couldn't adapt to the comedic character? Were there ones that struggled with it?
Yeah, I think everybody tries, but there are some players who just can't really. Well, when they take things too personal, I think is when it kind of gets to be an issue. In show, we had, Josh Arcanum and even LeJeff sometimes would get a little bit sensitive to stuff.
Yeah, that might have been our fault. We might have caused that with LeJeff, to be fair. He's a super nice guy. He was around FedEx for forever and a day. But this is shark infested waters, and there's a lot of chum already stirred up in it, and if you dip your toe, it's going to bite your whole leg off. So I think there might have been some sensitivity built in just by the level of that. I hesitate to say abuse, but certainly verbal sparring that goes on our boards.
And it's too bad. The guy is a good writer. He is.
Yeah. Totally agree. So FedEx died off years ago differently for different players. I know that you're a guy who at different points kind of stepped back in and wrote a little bit when no one was around. Do you remember when it was really dying off? What was the end of it for you? When was the moment you were like, I think this is it? Like, I think, was it something in your life? Was it the state of the boards? What was it that really led to that moment for you?
I think the first time, I mean, I was young when I started playing the game. I was just a kid, 13 years old maybe. So I know when I went to college, I really didn't play much at all.
Yeah.
Took years off, and then I think when I did come back is when I brought the kid back to wrestle, and the activity was nowhere near what it had been.
Right.
So that was interesting to come back to that and just see, how quiet it got.
Yeah. Yeah, the pace of play certainly, even just like we went through a period, and probably for you, you were probably like, I don't see it. But there were guys that when we started this resurgence a month ago, who the first week were active, and by the second week were like, hey, I had to post more than twice this week. Like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. And we had to say, like, keep doing it. Like, don't worry if you step on someone's toes because you didn't read every post. Like, it's okay. But you were pretty quick to be comfortable, at least getting up to, it looks to me like at least one a day.
Yeah, and I think again with the comedic character, it makes it easier. I mean, the Dateline TKK post, that's an easy post to do. You don't have to do any research, read much for posts. I just got to bash Gino for a whole post.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he probably had it coming.
He does.
Yeah. And I'm going to jump around as well because I had a question for later, but I think it fits now. You talked a little bit about, hey, some characters don't handle it well. Some characters kind of, it ruffled them the wrong way. You mentioned Josh Arcanum, who's a little famous from back in, I can't even remember how far back it goes, but for having typos in his messenger name and how entertaining it was for a number of us. Are there players that you just thought, I can't believe they don't have a thicker skin? Like, it's amazing to me how easy it was to push their buttons.
There's one that does come to mind. Gino is the one that comes to mind. I think it was the cookie cutter comments that really got him, but boy, they cut deep.
Yeah. And then, I think that's probably where we would say the white heat really started to burn, because there was some defensiveness that showed up when those comments got dropped.
Yep. And then since then, it's just been fun for me to just hammer the guy whenever I can.
Now you don't find yourself thinking, is this a big enough challenge for me?
I mean, it's not, but it's fun. It's fun. Sometimes it's fun to punch down.
That's amazing. All right. So, and so entertaining. Let's talk about, that gap. So you talked about being in school and there's a gap. Like, are there other hobbies, other things you poured yourself into when there was no game to play?
On the writing side of things, no, not really. I did miss that. We always talk about scratching the itch, and for me, that's kind of what that was, wanting to write again. And this is what I'm comfortable with. It's what I know. So I would always come back to it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think that's super, super true for a lot of players, that they did other things, but the writing side wasn't part of them. I don't think I've had anybody yet kind of put their hand up and go, I was doing a whole bunch of writing over here in the stead of doing this. I think they picked up other hobbies, but that writing piece is the piece that they didn't fill, or they didn't backfill. Did you find it difficult to come back to your character and find the kid's voice quickly?
Yeah, initially. This time wasn't that bad. But I know there's been a few times coming back where it's been tough to find it right away.
Yeah.
Call it rust or writer's block or whatever, but
right. Yeah, it's so, from my experience, there's like, I could step into 5 years later, because I keep him one dimensional so that I can do that, and so that other people can sell him perfectly and I never get offended. Like, you can't offend me because it's really hard to misunderstand who Ed is. But other characters, the ones that are more interesting, the ones that are more nuanced, the ones that have more depth, I can't just walk right back into them. Which is why I've intentionally kept Alan off to the side. If Stan had really engaged and taken Stan on a run, I would have found time to post more with Alan, because it's really easy for me to flow Alan with Stan around because his posts sell Alan so well. If Gino had come back and posted with Gino, that probably would have done the same thing. Obviously, Team SBFF, we've done so many things together. That really helps. But outside of that, he's not as simple a character to just refine the voice. And instead, I decided to go with Longshot, and I don't even know what the voice is. I'm stumbling over this really ordinary character, trying to figure out if he's ever going to have a thing that works. So, comedy, I can only imagine, still has its, the timing and the tone and the, finding the right balance between we are wrestling fed and, hey, we're going to do crazy things, and Demi Matrix is going to have a magic vagina, and like, there's got to be some struggle to refine that voice.
There is, and that's usually the problem, is trying to remember where you left off, what you were doing. I probably no-sold so many things that we were doing that we just stopped doing, just because we forgot we were doing it.
Yeah, 100%. I have, some people have come on and talked about, oh, remember when we did this on the podcast? I've been like, yes, no, I do not remember it at all. I have no idea.
I have a very vague recollection of anything in CyberSlam.
Yeah, that's
wrestling.
100% true. Yeah. Hey, so you mentioned Gentlemen, and you certainly mentioned the Kansas Kid. Did you have other characters that we just don't know were you?
I don't think I probably have any. Maybe Tony Twist was one that was back in CyberSlam. Doink was like a clown character. He was in Wrestle, I think. But no, not a ton. I didn't have a lot that really amounted to anything.
Yeah, I know you outed it publicly, so I'll just confirm.
Yeah.
Drunk Viking Bastard, right?
Yep. And that kind of goes to what you were saying about Longshot, still trying to find that voice. It's a guy I didn't really find it for, and I'm hoping to come back to, but with the kid going the way he is, I'm not going to try right now.
I will say this, just the idea that he just shouted for ring battle all the time has caught on. Like, other people now work that into their posts, even though he's not posting.
And that was his whole gimmick, basically, and I didn't know what to do with him after that.
It was pretty good. Like, it caught on.
It was
quickly.
Good. Yeah.
I would say one of the things that, and you probably picked up on this, like, early on, Lars and I paid a lot of attention to who slowed down and stopped posting, and we didn't know you were DVB. So I would like post things where I dropped your name, or I asked where you were, or I looked for an explanation, and he did similar, because we didn't know it was you. And we were so entertained by how easy it was to sell him. Like, it was really hard to get him wrong. When he's big, he wants to fight. He might have been drunk at the time that the fight started.
Yeah.
Got it.
Right. Yeah, he's a great background character, just a filler character. He's just always hanging around. Yeah. I'm hoping to keep him at least semi-active, but.
So we think about it, you go back to Billy, who's certainly a more zany, because I think DVB at his core is a little bit, humorous, tongue-in-cheek kind of a laugh. But Billy is zany and wild, and you do homages to movies that you clearly like, and we see that in the story, and you do crazy things. Was it always that way? How did you come to your love affair with the comedic writing approach?
No, I was a serious RPer when I started, for sure. I think most people probably were.
Yeah.
I don't think I really started doing the comedy until I met up with the AOD. Those guys were very funny, and there's a lot of funny people in that stable. And I think it might have been the CWA, but met up with those guys, and I just kind of caught onto that style, and I liked it.
Was there a biggest influence in that stable? Certainly, we all know a lot of big names from that stable, but was there one that really influenced you a lot?
I always thought Naked Man was probably the best one in the stable.
Right.
I thought he kind of stood head and shoulders above the rest. I shouldn't say that completely. Stormfire was in that stable too, and Stormfire was very, very funny.
Stormy gets a lot of love on here. I think a lot of people who I only had a brief CWA run where we crossed paths and maybe one or two matches that I really enjoyed, but I didn't get a lot of play time with him, and I know others who did, and man, they love him.
Yeah, he was very funny, but I would still say Naked Man was probably still the best of the bunch.
So you have you've clearly said Gino should have thicker skin, but you must have run across other players who just weren't equipped for dealing with the comedy style, whether it's because they didn't like the thing that you did to their character, or whether it's because they didn't like that you derailed what was a wrestling match and suddenly it turned out to be a magical space ride. Like, who are the characters that just weren't equipped to deal with you?
I don't know. I named Arcanum. He was one. Primo was a good one, but he's dead, so it feels bad to talk about him.
Well, I mean, I can balance that and talk about the fact that I have no idea how you lost to him. I can't wrap my brain around it.
I was kind of just fucking around, but I don't know either, really, to be honest.
That was craziness. What about like just characters that in general you didn't like working with? Like, not the writer, but the character. Like, you just found them flat or uninteresting, or just they didn't have anything to offer.
Like other than Gino?
Well, other than, I mean, unless you just want to talk about Gino, and then we can.
No, that's fine. He's one of them, though. I don't know. This one's tough. I can play with most people. Thor is very difficult to play with, but sometimes it was fun. He was one of the harder ones. Yeah, other than that, I don't know. These days, it's pretty easy. There's nobody who's really terrible.
Yeah.
And I don't remember too many names of.
That's kind of how I felt. You know, for those of you who don't know, we have this huge conversation going on in the Discord channel, and you really should get in and jump on board and just kind of catch up. But be prepared. It can consume time that you don't expect for it to consume. But one of the things we talked about is we're looking at other efeds out there and how they're still acquiring players to figure out how we can draw in new players and acquire players. And more than a few of them, you know, have put out the message like they're selective about who they would let join. And I think there was a suggestion that they might be a little too like elitist for us. I felt like I was quick to say, hey, there's nobody out there. I don't believe there's any place ever we will ever go that our guys won't be head and shoulders, if not at least as good, like significantly better than everybody else. Like, we do what I assume is the hardest way to play this game. Like, we allow boners to run around and force people to sell it. Like, we really don't have a lot of structure rules. And so, and I think Bill's calling it out right. He's on there right now going, their elitism will be our jobbers. And that like, maybe we'll pick up some guys. And I think that that's important. We say that because when we effectively did a raid on show, we picked up you, and you're clearly not a jobber except for Cremo. So, you know, like, we could get some real talent. It could happen. But I do think you're right when you say that. When you look around our Fed now, we don't have guys who can't play. We don't have people who can't sell. We really do. Even though we would like to see more, we would like to grow it. We would like to bring guys in who aren't in and aren't playing. Maybe some people who never played with us because they stayed in Wrestle till it died and didn't move. There's a lot of, like, who shows up can write. There's a lot of talent.
Mm-hmm. And when you look at some of those other EFEDs, I mean, some of those guys can write. It's not a matter of that. I worry that they won't be able to fit in as well. With the activity level, especially, I didn't see many that have a lot of activity.
Right. But isn't now the best time to get that in, when 2 posts a week, we'd be super happy with you? Like, that,
yeah,
this is the time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I just,
And,
yeah.
and I think when we've talked about this on the Discord channel as well, but I think one of the things that is ideal is we should be kind of waving the flag saying, hey, are you tired of letting the guy who runs the EFED decide when you win and when you lose? Like, don't you want to be able to tell more of the story yourself? It's your character. I'm a firm believer we don't need everybody. If we got 1 in 10 to go, I'm going to go poke around FedEx for a month or two. I think we would see sustainable growth for a long time.
Yeah, and I think it would probably be the better writers of the group too that would want to do that. So I think it would.
Yeah,
be,
I see. And I don't know. Do you know? You must know. You must have crossed paths with Royal Ryan Scott by now.
Yeah, he was with he was part of the invasion. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I see. He's my real fake internet wrestling cousin, and he is currently online with his curiosity piqued at the idea that he only has to post twice a week, which leads me to announce there will be a Royal Ryan Scott sighting before New Year's. I would like to make this announcement because I feel strongly confident that he will not hang me out to dry. All right. So as we're talking away, you know, I know that you really have great connections with AOD and with some of the comedy guys. Setting those ones aside, are there characters that you really just love working with that fit or were fun, or just the dynamic of matches or non-matches, as the case may be, that we wouldn't immediately say, well, that's clearly a guy that fits with the Kansas Kid? Are there any out there that you would give a shout out to?
Yeah, there was definitely one back in show. Mountain was always a fun foil for the kid.
Mountain.
Yeah, he was fun to play off of with the kid. He was a fun one. And then Relic, there was a guy named Relic in show too. He was he was fun too.
Yeah, we liked Relic, and Mountain actually came to Federation X. I think he got the wrong side, and he might have been a little soft coming in. And
I think he was a little soft. Yeah.
Yeah, and I hate to hear that, because he really wanted to play the good guy, but he played it against the good guys, and that didn't work out well for him. And I think maybe that frustrated him a little bit, and we lost him. I would love to see him make a comeback and turn it around and get back in there. He was fun. It was fun to take down with the good guys as well, but that's got to be part of the game, right? For sure. That's a great choice. And Relic is such a great call, was a great writer. Would love to see Relic again. So 2 great names. If you're watching and you know how to get this podcast in front of them, make sure you share this. I don't know who they are, but share this with them. In the very least, they should know they got a shout out from the Kansas Kid, right?
Yeah. And if Benny's watching, Benny, you should get Max an address for that computer.
Yeah. What's the deal there? We're still waiting, right? Has that not happened yet?
Yeah.
Or do we need to get Max drunk again so that we can get back on the promises made while hammered?
I don't know if he can make those stairs again.
That it looks like a death trap. I have no idea how he survived that.
Yeah, I don't know how he's alive.
That's totally true. Now we talked a little bit in our prep for this, and you're like kind of a wrestling guy. One of the things you pointed out is timing is everything, and you were talking about AEW and WWE. So my question for you is, do you think AEW is capable of actually taking a run, maybe not at supplanting WWE, but really getting back to that place where the Monday Night Wars took place, where they're really viewed as a legitimate option alternative?
I do. I think the product they're putting out there right now is entertaining. Sometimes you watch WWE and I don't know. I don't think it's very entertaining sometimes.
Right.
I mean, AEW isn't hitting home runs all the time, but I think it is a viable alternative to what WWE is putting out there.
Yeah. So I watch bits and pieces. I don't get a ton of time to watch it, but I watch bits and pieces, and I will say, more often than not, especially the last 6 to 8 months, I'm more intrigued by the bits and clips that I want to watch from AEW than I am from WWE.
Yeah, I think they are putting maybe a better product out there right now. And I think that's good for what we do too, because CyberSlam was big when wrestling was huge.
Right.
The more fans you got, the more eyes you're gonna have on stuff like eFeds and Federation X, and
That's right. I totally agree. And I think you're right. Like timing being everything. You think about how CyberSlam grew. How many guys have been on the podcast to say, I found CyberSlam because I found Scoop Central to read news about
yeah,
wrestling, and it linked me to CyberSlam. And you have to have enough people that care about that kind of stuff so that you can flourish in the way that they did. So we are for sure in a time where the rise of AEW could only serve to provide opportunity, and then it'll be up to us to figure out how to take advantage of that. Yeah, I think that's absolutely the case. All right, before we jump over to our main topic, one last question for you. Other people obviously dropped your name in the past. Is there someone we have not seen on the podcast since we started redoing them that you would like to see on the podcast?
yeah, I would love a Benny Blair podcast.
Just straight up Benny.
Just Benny, just a Benny Blair podcast.
Well, I think we can make that happen. I'll reach out to him and give him a poke and see what he thinks about that. He was able to get on. I think got on it with his phone a little while back, so maybe we can work something out and get him on. Have ourselves a conversation with Benny Blair, and we will find out if the rumors are true and he's willing to admit to being one of the anuses.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he might be both.
That would not, yeah, that's a definitive possibility, and certainly would validate my initial response, which is it's just the female version of boners. So, yeah. 100%. All right, so let's jump topics. Let's talk a little bit about growing FedEx, because I know that you flagged that and said, let's build on some of the ideas that came out during the podcast with Gino. Obviously, I think your exact wording was, anything Gino can do, I can do better. So, let's take that opportunity to think about some of your ideas. Generally speaking, what's your first thoughts when it comes to how do we grow the talent pool?
Well, growing the talent pool, I think what we're doing, the research on the other eFeds is where we start. And like you said, maybe we poach a couple here and there, get a couple new guys. And then I think the other thing is maybe we do set up a board for stuff like Dateline, stuff like that. That's not quite completely wrestling related. So we got a spot for that kind of stuff, just so we don't turn these e-fedders we're going to pull over off right away.
Right.
With stuff they're probably not used to. If they're working in a classic e-fed, they probably don't that much, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably fair. Now, I will say, like, Dateline the Kansas Kid, I found closer in that it was clearly you doing a fake show just blasting Gino. And yeah, I think that's probably, you're right, probably new for them, but closer to the promo feuding style that they might see more of than, say, some of the bonerish stuff that could.
The boner Christmas posts, yeah.
Yeah, maybe more than that. And I do think that there's a place for us to have comedy, but if giving it its own spot leads to easier adoption for incoming talent, I certainly read everything as much as I can. It's been a while since I haven't, but you guys certainly are all capable of throwing up enough posts to make me go, I'm just going to read the main core. I can't get through it all. I've seen that happen before, but I appreciate that one of the things that happened when we started the conversation was that you brought that idea forward to say, hey, I love doing that, but if it gets in the way of growing, it might be worth us having a conversation to say, do we give it a landing page of its own for a while?
Right. And I think, and I think Gino might have said this, but I'm going to say it better. Different role played ideas. What other role played things are there out there that people like to do? Are there superheroes? Superheroes are huge right now.
Right.
I don't want to say vampires because nobody wants to play with vampires, but I know there's vampire RP out there. Stuff along those lines. What other genres are there other than wrestling? Wrestling's a tough sell for some people.
Yeah, I think that's right. I will note Bill seems to be suggesting that we may not, it might be in our interest to not have the talent Nazis on the board as well. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
I get
I
it.
get. Yeah,
But also we do at least punch people and stuff. So that's kind of our thing. You know, one of the things you mentioned is these other games, like, yeah, we can build out other wings. We can think about boards and doing groupings of boards. I wondered if we might want to put something together that just like look at somebody like Titus, who has really good background knowledge on the EFED structure, and say to him, what do we need to do to provide a home so that guys can use EFED as their landing position, but like their home leads them to us and they kind of see what we're doing, and we'll get the draw over of the ones who really want to get back to or get into doing more storytelling rather than here's my feud post, you decide the outcome and write it up for me. I wonder if we shouldn't be thinking of in the way of some of the sites that we've looked at where they have like a top 100 efedders and a top this and a, you know, here's a networking site and here's a site where they can, like, yeah, we can go engage theirs, but we could also start trying to, you know, think about how do we make our landing page become part of what their experience does.
yeah. What are you thinking, like links and stuff, or?
Well, even just like, so eFeds, like they have places that they host and post their results, or they put their standings, or they put, like,
Yeah,
I'd be happy to set something up so that there's a Federation X homepage that like will carry all their data storage, because I can't imagine it could be much.
probably not.
Yeah, is there any way that we could present something appealing enough that they would say, hey, it'd be worth our while to open the EFED we want to create there? Because then every player they get gets exposed to Federation X. And you know, at some point there's just going to be a natural, but then also we could get guys who are like, I'm not going to get to write for the next 4 months, so I'm just going to drop into the EFED and let them do stuff with my character. And I'll use that to spool up to come back when I'm ready to come back.
Yeah,
Don't know.
okay, I get it.
I'm
Yeah,
trying to think of the most creative ways we can think of to go make crossover or make overlap, because the other areas we're poking around in are finding new players. How long they last, I don't know. Is it a good fit for all of them? I don't know. But like I said, I'm looking for 1 in 10.
right. Right. And yeah, that would be an idea. I don't know what else. We have just wrestling boards or something, you know, like that, more just a wrestling site.
Right? Do we put together a version of our game that's somehow just a sim game for guys who don't have time, but there's some benefit to being, you remember in C-Slam, like if you're number 1 at the end of the month,
Yep. And
that's a big deal. Like
what that's what drew me into C-Slam right away, is you just go and you sim your 10 matches or whatever, and you're like, oh, that was fun.
right?
And then you find the role play board and the out of character board and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
So I think something like that, I think, does have some value. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's important we realize there's a lot of people who are kind of sitting on these ideas and thinking about things and pointing out options. I know Tim did a ton of work finding links for us to all work through. I know that Pretty Boy Devin Deshawn has actually gone out and signed up for one of them to understand how they do what they're doing, to get familiar with it, so we can figure out how do we want to just go in and try and poach talent? Do we want to just email them? Do we want to, you know, engage them on Twitter? Like, how do we want to use that? Or do we just want to learn how they get their new players so that we can copy the idea and promote ourselves better? Like, and so there's a lot of people I've seen working towards this and contributing all over the Discord channel. I think with the number of people we have involved, I think if we can see our momentum in January bounce back from the holidays and give us some good kind of flow, I think we've learned that there are some things out there. There are people who are Googling EFED and wrestling game. There have to be, because these other games, there's 50 plus EFEDs out there that are getting enough players to not just shut their doors. So there's gotta be 50 other players out there that would like to do what we do.
Yeah. And the activity on those sites, it's not, I mean, it's not great, but they're posting a couple times a week, which is what we go back to from earlier.
Right.
Some of us are posting a couple times a week. It is what it is.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't know how you
Oh.
feel about it. I encourage more than one person to just blatantly say, I don't have time to read everything. If I step on your toes, you guys figure it out.
Yeah. And I
Because
think
I don't want them to go away.
no, and I think most of us are fine with that. We're not going to blow a gasket over something getting all sold or whatever. We'll fix it. We'll work with it.
I mean, we're not saying be as cookie cutter as Gino.
No, I mean, you got to try a little bit. You can't
Right.
just post forever.
Speaking of, I would like to welcome Gino to the live stream where he is telling us he thinks this is the worst podcast he's ever seen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it just doesn't come in strong. I expected more, really. And as his partner for years, I think I deserve better than that, Gino.
I don't understand him. It's like he's not trying, but I know he is, and that's what makes me sad for him.
Yeah. I know one of the things that you pointed to and commented on was, Holland put in a donation on Freeforms. In all honesty, I saw, there's a little bit in our, I don't know what we do with that money, but I'll figure it out, or Tim will figure it out. One of us will. They have this whole system that lets us do it. And I don't know what we do, but what I liked that was behind it is the idea, hey, are there some people who would put their hand up and say, hey, what can I contribute if we're going to, really build our own site out? And I mentioned before, we have the site, we have the domain name, we have an old sim site that we put up that really didn't get fleshed out and didn't get used other than as a sim. And it's a basic sim, which I think we've circled back to in a lot of ways, thinking is okay right now. But I think the idea that people are willing to contribute if we can get this off the ground it's good news. Our challenge, and I mentioned before, Lars and I are talking to somebody, is actually in the finding the developer side of things, I think.
Yeah, and I don't think most of us would have a problem pitching in money to help build a site that we're all going to play,
Right.
And that goes back to does this become a Scoop Central Cyber Slam type of deal, or if that's going to take money, yeah, I think you got plenty of people who would be willing to donate.
Absolutely. And I think that's the other side of it. I think one of the things I love is, Tim and I and those who are jumping on the conversation about advertising and bringing eyeballs to Federation X, if that, I said to Tim, there's so many EFEDs on Facebook. There's got to be some value to running a Facebook ad for Federation X and having a landing page that is like the EFED landing pages on Federation X, where they have to apply to join and we give a description and all that stuff. So if we go through and do that, there's going to be some cost that we'll consume. I don't mind consuming the cost early on, but as we grow that, if we're seeing things that are worthwhile and it's costing us, $25 a month to be advertising on Facebook, but we're picking up 2 or 3 players every month, seems perfectly reasonable. And then we would clearly have a way for people to put up their hand and say, hey, I want to contribute. Here's $5. Here's $5. But like, it doesn't have to be a lot. And it would help us kind of think about how to drive some of those opportunities. So I think that's a big plus side. I wanted to step out of our plan a little bit and just talk. I saw Ryan Scott comment on the live stream about, hey, remember the DIB system. One of the things that he was commenting on is it might be a little less stressful. I think I'm getting you right here, Ryan. I know you'll jump in and tell me if I'm not. It might be a little less stressful for players who can't sit at the computer and be ready to jump on things, to be able to see something and say dibs and have a 2-hour block where that holds for them. How do you feel about that kind of approach for the game?
Yeah, I never had a problem with the dib system. I think, like you said, 2 hours, whatever. You got to have a set time limit. 2, 3, even 4 hours. It doesn't really matter, but just that set time limit, and then I think dibs is fine. Yeah, if you got an idea that you think is gonna work good and help move things, absolutely call dibs.
Has anybody noticed on the boards the way that it'll tell you the next unread post on the list of at the bottom of the post you're reading? Have you seen that?
Yeah, yeah.
So I had an idea, and I don't know what the logistics are, but wouldn't it be great if you could say, instead of hitting a new post button, you could hit a continue button and it created a chain. And if you were in the chain, it would just let you go from one post to the next. So as the person trying to catch up on the story you're involved in, you could just read through those and then post and not have to read the other 50 things that have been put up necessarily before you started posting again.
Right.
Like
Yeah, I think that would be cool. I mean, yeah, we like to read everybody's stuff, but sometimes you just want to write a post too.
Right.
You just
You
want to
sit
get the
down and
relevant.
you're ready to write, and then you realize you're going to need to spend 2 hours reading before you get to write, and it kills you.
Right. So if you can just read that relevant information and get your post up, yeah, that would be.
Yeah, I think it would be so much fun if we could do that. I think the other thing that would be really interesting, we try and do it in the title of our posts. We'll always put in brackets like kid and the new breed and, this character and the power base needs to know this. Wouldn't it be great if we had like a flag for all the characters, and you could just, when you write your post, you could go flag these, and it would ping you almost like an @ symbol does on Discord or on Facebook to say, hey, there's a post that you're in. So when you logged in, it would like highlight them in a different color. So I got to go pay attention to those because I've been flagged, which means it's relevant to my character directly.
Yeah, that'd be very cool. Just kind of a way to tag the people in your post like we do on the titles. Yeah.
Right. I think if we can get any of those, and those are all things that I've got kind of bouncing around in the back of my head as we get prepared to talk. Like I said, we've got a developer. We're just waiting for the holidays and stuff to clear so that they're good to meet with us. When we sit down to talk, these are the kinds of, I'm trying to think about how to make it more accessible for players before I even worry about all the other cool stuff, right? And I think these would be mechanisms. I think there are also mechanisms that make it lower barrier of entry for guys who aren't accustomed to having to write even 2 posts a week.
Right. Yeah, I think it would help the guys coming back for sure. Especially some of the guys coming back who haven't played for a while. They see somebody they know on the boards, they want to hop in what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's easy to find your way to that. I wonder though, and so I think you're a great guy to ask this question because you're so active and you really do engage everybody. If they so much as look at the kid, they're in the next post. So what about, do you think that there's, we talk about heat. We've always talked about heat because it was kind of this background thing. It was part of the Rassel system, other systems. We scored posts. Is there a value to say you get more heat if more people flag you in their posts, or is there a value if you get more heat because you flag more people in your posts? Like thinking about heat less as did everybody like your story and more as are you getting more people involved in the story?
Yeah, that's a good question.
There's some,
because I'd like to say the more people that like it, the better. But if you get more people involved in the story, that's ultimately better.
right? Yeah, sometimes they get involved and they don't like it, but at least they get involved, right?
Yeah, at least you pulled them into something. Yeah,
that's right. We've certainly had those moments, and we've seen people kind of engage. I think if we're trying to solve, we have to recognize we want to lower the barrier to engage. We don't want to put a ceiling on the people who are engaged. And so we're playing with a delicate balancing act. We went through the period where we didn't care about the people who couldn't keep up. And as a result, we're playing with the same, 15 players, and we're trying to get out of that. And I think right now we've got a little bit of a window where we've got a few more than 15. And certainly we had that going into the holidays. We'd like to double that and be in a much stronger position, in the coming months. And so I think taking down some of those barriers would be advantageous. Any other ideas that you've been thinking of? I know one of the things you mentioned is, can we do more stuff that is, I guess it fits more into the conversation we had about the FedEx entertainment idea. Like, can we have a news channel that's just Dateline TKK doing all these things? Like, is there a vehicle you think would be good for us that we're not leveraging right now to engage new players?
Well, I don't think that's the answer, really, FedEx Entertainment, but I don't know what the answer to engaging new players would be. I do think, kind of going back to that CyberSlam thing, that the ease of a sim,
Right.
just being able to hammer out your 10 matches, I think that's probably the initial thing that got a lot of people in the door at CyberSlam, and then they found their way to the role play side of things.
Right.
I think that's a big part of it.
So I think if we're thinking about it in that sense, maybe we need to think about how to make simming a game that can stand on its own, but lines up with what we do when we have cards. Does that make sense? Like if I just get on my phone, on my app, and I get, 5 or 10 matches, whatever it is, in a day, and I sim them, the idea being strategic to beat guys above me so that they fall, but then we give a bonus if you hit the number 1 spot or you get in the top 5. Like, we can think about what the logistics of the game is. But if you sim more days in a row, you get stronger. So there's a reason to get you bouncing off the site frequently, but it takes 90 seconds to do a day's worth of sims.
Yeah, I think I think something like that is a good idea, where the sim can be its own thing, but it's also into the bigger game.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how you do that, but I think that's definitely an idea to work with.
And I think the good news is we're not on the verge of doing it real quick. So we can get everybody thinking about how do we do it, and we'll take the best ideas and put them together.
Right. Yeah. I like batting those ideas around. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you're one of the guys that's super active on the Discord channel. You seem to jump on frequently. The Boners managed to get their own color on the channel, which is actually is really helpful for me. It means I can figure out by color what to ignore most of the time. So, that certainly works real well. Let's talk a little bit, because one of the things the Discord channel really has done is it shines a light on this white heat that you've got with Gino.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why he doesn't like me. I don't know what I did to Gino, but he's really mad about it, and I don't think he's as good as he thinks he is. So that's why I keep just hammering him.
So like, there's probably other players out there that you could be feuding with. Why Gino?
Yeah, for sure. It's fun because right now he's inactive, so I can just keep kicking him, and I keep hoping he'll come back. And he has a little bit. He's put up a few things, but I'm waiting.
So, one of the things that you sent to me, we traded some notes in preparation. You said, I really like to talk about, so please ask me, what's the best thing you ever saw Gino do?
I've really only seen Gino do one thing. I've seen him do this same thing a few different times. He's really good at it. Gino goes inactive. It's kind of his move. It's what he does. I mean, he's good at it. Play to your strengths. Do what you're good at.
That's so good. Oh, I would like to. I don't like to see all this tension in the group, so I'm just going to throw this out there. Gino, if we need to get you on and have like a hash it out podcast, I'm prepared to facilitate that, because I think we're all better when you and the Kansas kid don't want to bury each other in the ground. That's not true at all. I think we're way better when you guys are burying each other in the ground, and I will feed this feud for as long as I possibly can. Speaking of inactive, we have had a few people who should be active really kind of die in the course of it. I know I heard from Price. I know that we've seen a few people not be able to hold up to it. Who is the character or the player? Like, was anybody worse than Gino at going inactive? Like, did you have somebody who like would build up to a big match and then just disappear, and they were like not seen for 2 months?
I don't know. I think most of us have probably done that, but Gino's the one I like to really point it out on. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've done that, so I don't want to say too much on that one.
Yeah, more than one person, I think, in the live stream were like, "Do not call me out on this."
Yeah,
like I don't want to hear about it. I think everybody's guilty of it. Gino is trying to deny that the two of you are in a feud. Gino, that's
we're still feuding. Heat feud.
Yeah, it does not seem accurate that you would say that. Eric correctly has identified that his brother, Johnny Rude, is notorious for going inactive after committing to a great idea. I've been on the receiving end of that on more than one occasion.
Don't worry, he's going to get a Dateline. So it's
a Dateline, Johnny Rude. Where are they now?
Yeah.
Hey, before we forget all about Gino, any last words for him?
For Gino? No. What more to say?
Well, we'll leave him at that then. Hey,
Terrible.
let's change subjects then. One of our final subjects of the podcast, I said we were going to get to it. Let's talk about your top 5. You have a top 5 that you've prepared, comedy dream fed. Why don't you walk us through who they are?
Yeah, it's really good. So number 1 is Naked Man, of course. I already talked at length about how much I love Naked Man. Number 2 is Homeless Jay. I know Homeless Jay gets a lot of love around here, and he should.
Yeah.
Homeless Jay is amazing. Number 3 is Stormfire. Stormfire, another great one. Number 4, Soap Opera Man.
Wow.
He is my
goes back.
Yeah, he's my favorite creation. Yeah. Number 5 is Naked Man with Knife, who was a second version of Naked Man, just because we need all the Naked Man we can get.
That's hilarious, and a great list. Now, I wouldn't be doing you any service if I didn't ask some tough questions. So my first is this: when we talked about our first podcast and we got 15 wrestlers to start a dream fed around from other boners, they didn't name you. Did that cause tension in the boner force?
No, we've never discussed it. It's just the boner force. It's just a boner love.
I gotcha. So coincidentally, though, is this revenge because you didn't name any of them on this list either?
No, I don't really think we need to name each other on our lists. I mean, we're the boners. We'll just go. We'll come with anyways.
Yeah. That sounds exactly right. Phrasing and all.
Yeah, we don't need an invite.
Fairly true. Do you have, how do you remember the emergence of the boners? Do you remember how, I was not at all surprised that Billy ended up as a boner. The angle seemed a perfect fit. You were certainly playing the characteristics of boners before there were boners.
Yeah.
But do you remember how that kind of manifested for you, how that story really took hold?
Yeah, it was in a big battle royal. I remember that. I wasn't even active at the time. I think I was inactive, and then I got a message from, I think it was Stoner Boy, saying, "Hey, you got to come get in on this." And I followed the link, and it was like the Gilgamesh fuck pile, I think, is where we were at the story.
Oh my gosh, I had forgotten all about that.
And then from there, it just kept getting worse and worse, and it was still probably the most fun I've ever had playing an online wrestling game.
Oh my gosh, the Gilgamesh fuck pile was the biggest mess.
Yeah,
I can't believe I forgot it. It was a complete cluster.
the
And
whole way it was horrible.
yeah, it was just a mess. Poor Randy and his character. I mean, that just was brutal.
I was gonna go read through that again, but it's like 256 pages long or something. It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a mess. That's right. Somebody just tagged Randy to make sure he knows we talked about it. That's wonderful. Appreciate that, Tim. Oh, all right. So those were all the topics that we had prepared before I let the Kansas Kid go, because I know there were a lot of people who were really excited that we were going to have the Kansas Kid on. Are there any questions out there that people would like the Kansas Kid to answer while he's on the podcast? He and I will casually talk about other things while we wait for those questions to appear. Jason, Genocide is pointing out the gay C-Slam universe was the great angle. Like the entire every character's opposite doppelganger is gay.
I mean, I've said this in the Discord. He's the idea guy. He can have good ideas. He just can't write.
Seems fair. I mean, it was a good idea.
Yeah, he's got good ideas. He just can't write.
Nope. What does gay C-Slam universe Kansas Kid look like?
Straight. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. Said Jason beat me to it. He got it up and said Missouri man instead of Kansas Kid was straight.
I remember the Missouri man. That was kind of fun, actually.
I think that's hilarious that we're tapping into both the fuck pile and the gay C-Slam universe. Those were some crazy times. For sure, the wrong time for us to invite new players from efeds.
Yeah, they're gonna love all this stuff.
100% not what they need to do. Hey, so we've got a question, and they seem pretty on point on this one. Can you play an actual wrestler?
Honestly, I don't know. I think I can. I know enough about wrestling where I think I can do it. I just oof.
Was there a time with gentlemen that was?
Yeah, I mean, I've written a lot of match action. Think I'm all right at it, but I just don't find it as fun as running around and just doing shit.
My memory doesn't really serve, but I think that might have been one of the strikes against you when you lost that King of Wrestling match that should never have been lost.
Yeah, I don't think I did much for match action in that match at all. And yeah, I think Ridgway was very clear that is a big reason why I did not win, is because I didn't do any match stuff.
Yeah. Genocide would like to know why you ignored an invitation to the King of Wrestling. He suggests it was either fear or cowardice. Can you confirm?
I didn't know I was invited, but I will say cowardice.
Almost fell out of my chair. That's so funny. All right. We'll just give them a minute to see if there are any last questions. They're not super fast on these ones, but they've asked some good ones so far. Kansas Kid has, more than a few moments in Federation X. I think about the ones we just talked about, of course. We think about, some of the semi-feuds that you had going on. Was there a match where he was forced into actual match action that you enjoyed?
Like actual match action?
Yeah, actual match action.
I don't remember the last time I've actually done any match action. honestly, I know Dice gets a lot of shit around here, but I think I probably had a match with Dice even back in show that I probably ended up enjoying. Or actually, a better one is the Great Lotus. Me and the Great Lotus had some fun matches in show.
Nice. All right. That's way better than using dice.
That's way better. Yep. Yeah.
Jason would like you to dig deep and tell him how it felt to lose to Cremo.
I think initially I was upset. But yeah, I got over it pretty quick.
Seems fair. I would have been upset if I lost to Cremo. I'm still upset about losing to Price. So
I think I posted a few things just kind of bashing Ridgeway and then got over it.
Poor Ridgeway.
I know, just the nicest guy.
Yeah. So Lars would like to know that if the ANSI wanted the kid to be their manager and butt plug catcher, would he do it?
Yeah, he would absolutely do that. That's right up his alley.
Well, it's right up something.
He'd have to be able to use the butt plugs as well, though, I think.
Okay, new players, this is not the norm. Let's just clarify. That is not what you should expect to see if you show up in Federation X. It's going to be our luck. They're going to find our podcast before they find our site.
This will be the one they watch too.
Yeah, that's right. Or the one with Gino, which
that's worse.
Yeah.
Then they'll think it's just ugly people that play here.
Wow. Now hold on, because you dropped a great line when we were talking about that. Let me see if I can remember this. You said, when I saw Gino, I said to myself, that could be me in 50 or 60 pounds.
Yeah, that is what I said. I think we are a lot alike, and I think I could be, I could be Gino if I gained 50, 60 pounds and lost some hair and self-respect.
Wow. Oh, hey Gino, if you need a rebuttal, we can get you back on a podcast to fire shots. Gino wants to know why, how it was that Twist Hex was a superior character.
I think it's probably just, it's the Raven picture that tricks you into thinking so.
Now, nature of that joke, were you Twist Hex?
Yeah, I'm Twist Hex, yeah.
How did I not know that?
I don't know. I thought
maybe I did know and I forgot. Maybe I blacked that part out.
Kids mentioned it a lot, so I think you probably knew on some level.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's just one of those things that whiskey drinking has cost me. I mean, I can't imagine all the things that Bill's forgotten.
I still think he fell down those stairs.
I've seen no evidence that his wife still lives with him, which I think is an appropriate response. So if he's single or in the verge of becoming single, I totally understand how that happened.
Yeah, on a road trip.
There you go. By the way, Lars came to your defense. He liked Twist Hex.
Yeah, he was okay. He had his moments. But,
Not bad. Not bad. Well, hey, I appreciate you making time to come on. I know that we had a bunch of people on who are, Bill swears, the door is intact. Everything is okay. We do not believe you, Bill. Oh, nobody believes you. All you have to do is watch that podcast. I take it from your laughter. You saw Miller's commentary.
Yeah, I see that. That's a good one. Oh, it hurts.
Tim wants to, we've gone schoolyard, folks. Miller with the across the bow fire of a schoolyard commentary. Lars wants to know if you're having a good time, if you're having fun playing again.
Yeah, I always have fun when I play. I've liked this game ever since I got good at it. Pretty shitty right away, like most people, but now it's fun. I like it. Yeah.
Do you remember the nature of your first post? I think that's always a funny thing for me to remember mine. Do you remember kind of what it was?
Yeah, it was your classic, just walk down to the ring and demand title shots and walk back up the ramp. I was that guy.
That's so funny. Oh, wow. So I do think most of us, especially those of us that go all the way back to the slam, that's what our first post was. And we really didn't have any context. So I say all of that because if we're going to go out and try and attract players, we better be prepared that we're going to get some of that, and how we deal with them is going to go a long way to determining if they turn into the next Acid Ed or the next Kansas Kid, or if they turn into the next Genocide.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Right. We want to encourage them. We want to develop them. We want them to be original. I think that's important. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's fun. I could listen to you make fun of Gino all day. Honestly, it's super entertaining.
It's super easy. It's super easy too.
I just had to get one more in, Gino. Sorry, man. All right. We're going to wrap up this podcast. We have gotten some great answers and some good ideas. I am going to invite all of you to continue to think about the things we're talking about. How do we expand the talent pool? Where do we do our advertising, or do we create landing pages? Where can we create them so that when people search? And I'm going to encourage those of you who have 20 minutes that you can give to it. Like, don't leave it all to Tim and I. We're trying to balance 100 other things and figure out a bunch of other stuff. And while Tim is already involved and doing research, and we've got some people who are contributing, we can always use more. Get on the Discord channel if you're not on it. Make sure you're getting connected in. I see there's some people joining our Federation X group that haven't been on it before on Facebook. That's awesome. Especially for you to get the podcast live and to jump on the live stream and comment and ask questions, which is so cool. But Discord is where we get into the daily conversations about what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, when we're going to do it, who's going to get involved in it. So the more people that pitch in, the farther this is going to go. If you leave it to just Tim and I, it can only go so far. We only have so much time to run this down. We only have so much energy for it. And we want to play too. We're not in that place where we don't want to post, that we don't want to get our characters up on the board. We want to have time to read the Kansas Kids posts and laugh and then go, how the heck do I keep my character away from that so I don't get destroyed? Like, we want to have those moments, and that means we need everybody to get involved. If you're somebody who really understands Reddit, you can help us. You can build us tools that will represent us on Reddit, so people land and get interested and apply and then come join us. If you're somebody who really gets Facebook groups, you can help out with that. If you're really good on Twitter, there are things we could be doing out on Twitter. If you have other ideas that we don't know about, I think there were some that Tim found on Tumblr, like wherever it might be. Get involved, pitch in. And then at the same time, the good news, especially for my my cousin out there, my online fake internet wrestling cousin, is that, a couple of posts a week and you are contributing and you are in the action. So good news, everybody. Royal Ryan Scott before January 1st. This is the exciting thing. We're going to start seeing some people as they start to realize that we can play without having to post twice a day. And that's just, the more of us there are, the more creative we can get in our stories, the more people who can sell things to. It's just going to be a better time all the way around. So I'm looking forward to it. The Kansas Kid is playing. If you needed any other reason to be active, that's the one you're looking for. Appreciate it, Matt. Thanks for being on. And we will talk to everybody next time when I try and track down Benny Blair at the request of the Kansas Kid, so that we can have another conversation. Although I do have a rule, unlike Bill, who needs to be more sober the next time he's on, Benny's actually better if he's less sober. So we're going to have to make sure that Benny has partaken before we get him on the podcast. All right. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks, Matt.
Yep.